So 6.5, Foundations of Math, Pre-Calculus 10, 6.5, is the slope point form, also known as point slope. So, what do we know so far? So far, you guys should know that a line that's typically graphed like this, let's just draw one here. Let's say this is 1. Let's say the slope is 2. If that's the case, you know how to write the equation for this line in what form? What's the form that you guys know? We just did it. Slope, y-intercept, right? So you know slope, y-intercept. You could write an equation for this line pretty easily in slope, y-intercept. Here's the y-intercept. Here's the slope. Done, right? Here's the form that you know. You go, hey, y equals, the slope is 2, and the y-intercept is plus 1. Okay? This is pretty easy, right? Hopefully you guys got a handle on this here, pretty much. What happens if you're not given the slope? If you're not given the slope, you could calculate the slope and then use this form, or you could just use what you're given and you could calculate the slope and use another point. So it's very similar. This one. Okay, so let's just do it. So the slope is m, and a point is x1, comma y1. So if we're given this, and I said earlier that we weren't given a slope, but I guess with this one, you know, you do kind of need the slope for this one, because it does have slope in the name. There later you won't be given the slope and you'll have to calculate it. But so this form comes when you're given the slope and you're given a point. That kind of makes sense, right? Now let me tell you where this form comes from before I give the form to you. What is the formula for slope? There's several that we've talked about. What do you know about slope? Slope equals what? Someone just shout it up. Rise over run. Okay, good. Anything else? Slope equals? Okay, I heard somebody say this. Change in y over change in x. Yes. And finally, you said y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, that's slope. Awesome. Now, notice something. Slope here is defined in terms of points, right? So this is a point like x1, y1. This is another point, x2, y2. The neat thing about this is, okay, and you don't have to erase yours, but the neat thing about this is this format for the equation of a line comes from the definition of slope here. It comes from this definition of a slope. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply both sides by x2 minus x1. I'm going to take that definition of a slope and I'm going to multiply both sides by this denominator. And what that's going to do, excuse me, is it's going to eliminate the denominator on this side. And what you end up having excuse me, is this. Okay? So this right here is very close to the point slope form. If we're given one point, okay, x1 and y1, we're actually going to just rewrite this like this. So y2 minus y1, I'm just going to switch sides here. And then an equation of a line always has, well, not always, but most of the time for your linear equations here so far, unless it's horizontal, it has both the x variable and the y variable in it, right? So we've had an x and a y, right? So we need to have, we're going to use one point, we're going to use this, and we're going to use this, but the y here and the x here are not going to be the two, they're just going to be x and y, and they're going to stay as x and y. And so the format, the point slope form, is going to look like this. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so this is the point slope form, or slope point form. The m is obviously your slope, you know that, and the x and y coordinates of your point go there and there. Okay? So, let's get some practice here. And you don't have to rearrange anything else, you can just leave it like that, okay? So let's say we're given a graph here, and let's just do this, where this is 2, and this is, I don't know, let's say this is 4, 4. Okay. So this is y equals 2. What's the point here represented with the y-intercept? What's that as a point? Is it 0, 2 or 2, 0? Which one is it? 0, 2. Very good. Okay, so let's say I'm given this. What do I need for the point slope form? I need a point, just one point, doesn't matter which point, and I need the slope, right? Okay. So, what's the slope of this line? What's the slope of this line? Four minus 2 is 2. 4 minus 0 is 4. So the slope is 1/2. Does that make sense? Go up 2, you go over 4. Okay. So here's your slope. And when you're using the point slope form, all you need is one point from the graph. So it does not matter which point you use. I'm going to pick this point, and there I have my slope, and I have my point. So this is how it works. You go y, and that, remember, stays as y. What's the y coordinate for this point that I chose? Well, 4, I guess. Equals the slope, 1/2, goes there. X stays as x, and we subtract the x coordinate for this point, which is 4. So that is the equation of the line in the point slope form. I know this is terribly exciting, I know. Okay? Not every lesson in math is going to be like, totally exciting. But, hey, when you see this, you can get a lot of information on this now, right? You know this is the slope, you know this is the x value, and this is the y value for your point. Okay? Question, yeah? Okay, so just check your understanding here so far. I want you to take this information over here on this graph and write the equation of this line in the point slope form. So do it just like we did that last example. Okay? So you guys go ahead and do it. I'll freeze the screen, give you a few seconds to do it, and then I'll show you the answer. Okay? Point slope form. Tell me if that looks right to you. Is that what you got? Or is there an error there? Compare that to what you have. Okay, so let's go through it. The point should be 5, negative 2. Here's the x, 1 value. Here's the y, 1 value. The slope is negative 2. So the slope goes here. The y value for the line goes here. See that? Now it is a minus. It's a minus, a negative. And the x value, 5, goes here. So you should simplify a minus a negative there. So it'll be y plus 2 equals negative 2, bracket x minus 5. Everybody get that? An answer? Yes? Okay. So you can just leave it like that. That is your equation of your line. Okay, so for this example, if I gave you this equation of a line, and I asked you a few questions about it, you should be able to answer a few basic questions. Like, for example, what is the slope of this line? It is 1 over 3. Good. 1/3. All right, so here's the m part of the equation. That's the slope. Got it? Okay, what is the point? What is one point that's on this line that you know of for sure? What are the coordinates to the point? 4, -2. Sorry? 4, +2. Okay, anything else? Any other guesses? Sorry? -4, -2, -4 plus 2. Okay, that's pretty much every possible combination, yes, of answers. Okay, very good. We've covered them all. Now, what you have to remember is the format of the line. So we just talked about this. You need to memorize this, right? Y minus y1, m times x minus x1. So we are subtracting a number here, which is the y value. Here, in this equation, it shows up as a minus, and so y1 does equal +2. Because this shows up as a positive, guess what that means? That means that we're actually subtracting a negative value. See that? So the x1 is actually -4. So the point is -4, 2. That's kind of a tricky part. You got to look at those signs here, and you got to figure out, okay, the format is minus and minus. Okay, so the one thing you could do is say, all right, I'm just going to take the opposite sign that shows up here and the opposite sign that shows up in there. That's one way you could think of it. Okay? That's how it'll always be. The only other thing that will come, right, is if this format is rearranged a little bit, like I did with the y equals mx plus b, remember that? So for example, this same line could be written like this. Now look at this right here. You see how I've moved that -2? You see how I've moved that value to the other side of the equation? So this is the exact same line. And you may say, well, Mr. Maxwell, that's not part of the format that you gave us. There's nothing over here. Well, that's true. So in order to get this into this format, what you have to do is you have to bring this over to the other side. So if you're given an equation like this, you have to write it in the proper form. Then those rules will always apply. See that? So there's your slope y-intercept form. Okay?